Right now, today, while you're watching this, there is a machine flying through space that is older than the internet, older than cell phones, older than almost every single person watching this video. It should have died a long, long time ago. NASA only built it to last 5 years. It has been flying for almost 50. And right now, this old, tiny, half-broken machine is sending back information so strange that scientists are running out of good ways to explain it. This machine is called Voyager 1. And what it just found out in space is not just weird. It might be changing everything we thought we knew about the edge of our own solar system. It might even be changing what we know about how safe we really are here on Earth. Here's the part that should really get you thinking. Nobody expected this machine to still be alive. Nobody expected it to travel this far. And nobody, not one single scientist on the whole planet, expected it to find what it actually found once it got there. So how did a machine built back in the 1970s end up doing something no other machine in human history has ever done? To understand that, we have to go all the way back to the beginning. On September 5th, 1977, a rocket blasted off from Florida, carrying a small robot spacecraft about the size of a small car. Its name was Voyager 1. Its job sounded pretty simple on paper. Fly past a couple of planets, snap some pictures, gather some information, and then quietly go dark forever. NASA figured the whole trip would take about 5 years. Maybe a little more. Nobody thought this little machine would still be working today, in 2026, still calling back home from farther away than any human object has ever traveled. But Voyager 1 never went quiet. It flew past Jupiter in 1979 and beamed back the first close-up pictures of that giant planet that human eyes had ever seen. Then, in 1980, it swept past Saturn and its rings. By the time both of those flybys were finished, this little spacecraft had already traveled farther than anything humans had ever built. And it just kept going. Stop and think about that for a second. This machine has no way to charge its batteries. There's no repair shop floating out there in space. There's no button anyone can press to restart it if something breaks. Once it launched, it was completely on its own forever, with no way back and no way to send help. Every single part on it is built with 1970s technology. The phone sitting in your pocket right now has more computing power than this entire spacecraft. And yet, here we are, almost 50 years later, and it is still flying, still working, still talking to us across billions of miles of empty space. That fact alone should stop you in your tracks. But honestly, that part is not even the wild part of this story. Because out in the cold, dark places past every planet we know, Voyager 1 found something that is making even the smartest scientists on Earth use words like impossible. Before we get into that, if stories like this get your brain buzzing, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe right now. And here is a real reason to do it, not just an empty ask. This spacecraft is not done making news. NASA just tried something brand new with it in the middle of 2026. Something that could either save this machine or push it closer to the end for good. If you subscribe now, you will not miss what happens next in a story that is honestly still being written in real time. Now, to really understand why this little spacecraft matters so much, you need to understand something most people never even think about. Our entire solar system is sitting inside a giant invisible bubble. Section 2, the edge of everything. Here is something wild most people never learned in school. The sun does not just give us light and warmth. It also constantly blows out a steady stream of tiny, invisible particles in every direction, kind of like an invisible wind that never stops blowing. The solar wind pushes out so far and so hard that it forms a giant, invisible bubble all the way around the sun and every single planet inside it. That bubble is bigger than almost anything you could ever picture in your head. It is so massive that even light itself, the fastest thing that exists anywhere in the entire universe, takes many, many hours just to cross from one edge of it to the other. Everything you have ever known lives inside that bubble. Earth, the moon, every planet in our solar system, every single spacecraft humans have ever built, every person who has ever lived, including you, right now, reading this. But every bubble has an edge. And in 2012, 35 years after Voyager 1 launched, it reached the edge of that giant bubble and passed straight through it, out into the space beyond. That means Voyager 1 became the very first thing built by human hands to completely leave our solar system. Not almost leave it, not get close to the edge and turn back. It actually left and kept going, straight into the space between the stars, a place where nothing built by humans had ever gone before in the entire history of our species. Think about what that really means. Right now, there is a machine sitting outside of everything we call home. It is not near a planet. It is not near our sun. It is floating out in the actual empty space between our star and the next star over. And it is still sending back information about what that place is really like. For decades before Voyager 1 got out there, scientists had a pretty confident guess about what that space between the stars would look like. They pictured it as calm, Quiet, empty. A cold, boring stretch of nothing sitting between one star system and the next one, sort of like a long, silent hallway connecting two rooms in a house. Nobody had ever actually tested that guess before, because nobody had ever sent a working machine out there to check it for real. Every idea scientists had about that space came from staring at it through telescopes from far, far away. That is kind of like trying to guess exactly what a swimming pool feels like by standing outside in the parking lot and looking at it through a window. You can guess. You can even build detailed charts and models. But you do not really know the truth until something actually gets in the water. Voyager 1 got in the water. And what it found out there made scientists go back and question ideas they had trusted for decades. Think about how strange this really is when you compare it to anything else in the history of exploring new places. When ships first crossed the ocean centuries ago, at least the sailors were still floating on water they somewhat understood. When climbers first reached the top of the tallest mountains, they were still standing on the same planet everyone else lived on. Voyager 1 did something completely different. It left the planet, left the sun, left the whole neighborhood of space that every single human being has ever called home, and kept sending postcards back from a place none of us had ever set foot in, not even close. And here's the strange part nobody really talks about. Voyager 1 did not just leave home. It kept its job. It did not shut down once it crossed that edge. It kept every sensor running, kept listening, kept measuring, and kept sending everything it found straight back to a small team of scientists sitting in a control room here on Earth. A 50-year-old machine, alone in the dark, still clocking in for its shift every single day. To really understand how strange this got, we need to hear about the sound this little spacecraft picked up, because it is one of the strangest discoveries in this entire story. Section 3, the sound that shouldn't exist. Starting in 2017, one of the listening tools on board Voyager 1 began picking up something strange. A steady, quiet hum coming from the space all around it. This was not a one-time blip. It was not some glitch that showed up once and disappeared. It was a hum that just kept going year after year, stretching across a distance so wide it is genuinely hard to picture in your head. Here's a way to imagine the size of it. The distance between Earth and our Sun is about 93 million miles. That already sounds huge, right? Voyager 1 picked up this steady hum across a stretch of space 10 times longer than that. That is not a small little patch of space making this sound. That is a massive chunk of the area between the stars, all humming quietly at the same time. Scientists published what they found in a serious science journal, and their conclusion was simple. The space between the stars is not quiet, it is not empty, it is not calm at all. It has movement, it has structure. It has something happening at nearly every size you could imagine. From tiny distances you could measure with a ruler, all the way up to distances that stretch on for millions of miles. In other words, that quiet hallway between star systems that everyone imagined for decades is not quiet at all. It turns out to be full of gentle motion and hidden energy that nobody on Earth could ever detect before, simply because nobody on Earth had ever had a working machine sitting inside it to listen. Try to picture it this way. Imagine you always believed the ocean was completely still and silent below the surface, because from the shore, that is exactly how it looks. Then one day, someone finally dropped a microphone down into the deep water, and it turned out the ocean was full of clicking, humming, moving life the entire time. You just never had a way to hear it before. That is basically what happened here, except instead of an ocean, it is the actual space between the stars. And instead of a microphone, it is a 50-year-old spacecraft that was never even designed to make this kind of discovery in the first place. And honestly, that hum was not even the strangest part. When Voyager 1 first crossed the edge of our solar system bubble back in 2012, scientists expected the crossing to feel smooth, like slowly wading from a warm swimming pool into a slightly cooler one. A gentle, gradual change from one kind of space into another. That is not even close to what actually happened. Right at that edge, tiny invisible particles were slamming into each other so hard and so fast that the temperature spiked to somewhere between 30,000 and 50,000 degrees. Some scientists have started calling this spot the Wall of Fire. Not because there are real flames out there. There is no smoke. Nothing is actually burning the way fire burns here on Earth. But the particles in that area are moving so fast and colliding with so much energy that the spot technically reaches temperatures hotter than parts of the surface of our own sun. And here's the part that should really mess with your head a little. Voyager 1 flew straight through that wall of fire, and it did not melt. It was not destroyed. It kept right on flying like nothing had happened at all. That is because even though the temperature out there is unbelievably high, the actual particles are spread so incredibly far apart from each other that there is almost nothing there to actually pass that heat onto the spacecraft. It is a little bit like standing near a lit sparkler on the 4th of July. The very tip of that sparkler can burn at thousands of degrees, but because so little of it actually touches your skin, you do not get burned holding it. Voyager 1 flew through something like that, except at a scale that is almost impossible to picture, and it came out the other side completely fine. But there was one more discovery waiting at that same edge, and this is the one that really made scientists sit up straight in their chairs. For years, scientists believed that the magnetic pull coming from our own sun and the magnetic pull filling the space between the stars were two totally separate things, like two radio stations that never once touch each other. One belongs to us, one belongs to everything outside us. Clean, simple, and separate. Voyager 1 discovered that this is not true. The magnetic pull coming from our own sun and the magnetic pull way out in the space between the stars are actually connected to each other. They line up, they touch. Energy from one side seems to be able to flow into the other side, right at the exact same edge where everything else already turned out to be stranger than anyone expected. This might not sound like a huge deal at first, but think about what that giant bubble around our solar system actually does for us. It is not just a line on some science chart somewhere. It acts like a shield. It blocks a lot of the most dangerous energy flying around out in deep space from ever reaching us here on Earth. If that shield is more connected to the space outside it than anyone ever realized, if energy really can move back and forth between our home and the wider universe in ways nobody predicted, then scientists have some serious rethinking to do about exactly how solid that shield really is over long stretches of time. We still do not fully know what that means for us here on Earth. But the fact that this question even has to be asked now is a big deal all on its own. Think about it like the walls of your house. Most people assume the walls of their house keep everything outside completely separate from everything inside. Now imagine someone discovered that heat and air were quietly slipping through cracks you never even knew existed, moving back and forth in ways the people who built the house never planned for. That is basically the situation scientists are facing right now with the giant shield around our entire solar system. Nobody is panicking, but everybody agrees it needs a much closer look. And here is maybe the wildest twist in this whole story. Voyager 1 almost never got the chance to tell us any of this because back in 2023, this tiny machine very nearly died for good. Section 4, the machine that almost died. In November of 2023, something went badly wrong. Voyager 1 kept sending signals back to Earth just like it always had. But the signals stopped making any sense at all. It was like getting a text message from an old friend that was just a random jumble of letters and symbols, none of it forming actual words. The engineers at NASA, people who had spent their whole careers reading messages from this exact spacecraft, could not understand a single piece of it. The spacecraft was not dead. It was still alive, still transmitting, still trying its best to talk to us, but whatever it was trying to say had turned into complete gibberish. Picture getting a phone call from someone you love, hearing their voice clearly connect, but every single word that comes out is scrambled static that makes no sense at all. You know they are there. You know they are trying to tell you something. You just cannot understand a single piece of it. That is basically what the engineers at NASA were dealing with, except the call was coming from 15 billion miles away, and there was no way to just call back and ask the person to repeat themselves. For 5 whole months, nobody could figure out exactly what had gone wrong. When they finally tracked down the problem, it turned out to be something almost unbelievably small. One single memory chip inside the spacecraft, a piece of hardware smaller than your fingernail, had slowly worn down after nearly 50 years of being blasted by radiation out in deep space. That one tiny broken chip was scrambling every single thing the spacecraft tried to send home. Now here is where the story gets almost too wild to believe. If your phone breaks, you can walk into a store and someone can fix it or swap it out in a few minutes. Voyager 1 sits about 15 billion miles away from Earth. There's no store out there. There's no repair truck. There's no way to send a single human being out to fix it. Not now, not ever. The only tool NASA had was a simple radio signal. And even that radio signal took 22 hours just to travel one single way. Think about what that really meant for the team trying to fix this. They would send up one small test message, then they would wait almost a full day just for it to arrive. Then, if the spacecraft managed to respond, they would wait almost another full day for that response to travel all the way back to Earth. That means every single step of trying to fix this broken machine took nearly 2 full days just to see whether it had worked. And they could not just take wild guesses and hope for the best. If they sent even one wrong command by mistake, it could have shut Voyager 1 down forever, with no possible way to undo it. Imagine trying to perform surgery on someone using instructions that take a full day just to reach the surgeon's hands, knowing that a single wrong move could end everything, and you cannot even see what your own hands are doing. The team at NASA worked on this problem for months, slowly, carefully, testing one small idea at a time, sending it out, and then waiting almost 2 days just to see what happened next. Eventually, they figured out that they could not actually repair the broken chip itself, but they could work around it completely. They took the piece of information that the broken chip used to handle and split it up into smaller pieces, then tucked those pieces away in other parts of the spacecraft's memory that still worked just fine. It took months of this slow, careful, nerve-wracking process. But by the spring of 2024, Voyager 1 came back online. Clear signals, real, readable information, actual, understandable messages coming from a machine that plenty of people had already started to think might be gone for good. And the very first thing it sent back once it woke back up was more information about that strange humming sound way out in the space between the stars. This machine already came back from the edge once, but right now in 2026, it is facing a brand new problem, and this time, no amount of clever code alone can fix it. It is simply running out of power. And what NASA is trying to do about it might be the boldest move of this entire 50-year mission. Section 5, the final countdown. Voyager 1 gets all of its power from 3 small power packs bolted onto its frame. These packs slowly turn heat from a special material into electricity, and they have been doing that job quietly since before the spacecraft even launched. But that heat and the power that comes with it fades a tiny bit more every single year. It has been fading like that for almost 50 years straight, and there's no way to refill it, ever, for the rest of this mission. Right now, in 2026, Voyager 1 runs on roughly 250 watts of power. That might sound like a normal amount until you realize that is about the same as a couple of bright light bulbs. That is the entire power budget for a machine sitting 15 billion miles from Earth, still gathering information, still talking to us, still teaching us new things about the universe. Every single year it loses about 4 more watts. That does not sound like much at once, but after decades of losing a little bit more every single year, with absolutely no way to ever gain any back, it adds up fast. And there is a real limit coming. At some point, there simply will not be enough power left to keep any of its remaining tools running at all. NASA has known this day was coming for years, and the team has had to make some incredibly hard choices because of it. Out of the 10 science tools this spacecraft originally launched with, 7 have already been switched off completely, one by one, just to keep the rest of the spacecraft alive a little longer. In April of 2026, they had to shut off yet another one, a tool that had been running almost non-stop since 1977. Once a tool like this gets switched off, there's no easy way to switch it back on. Every single shutdown means a set of questions about the universe that might never get answered. Think about how heavy that decision really is. Somewhere on Earth, a group of scientists had to sit in a room together and decide, one tool at a time, what this 50-year-old machine gets to keep doing and what it has to give up forever. There is no do-over. There is no changing your mind next year. Once the power is gone, it is gone, and whatever that tool could have told us goes quiet along with it. But here's the part that nobody saw coming. NASA is not just sitting back and letting this machine slowly fade away. They are trying something bold. Engineers have been working on a plan they started calling the Big Bang. The idea is to completely rework how power flows through the spacecraft, shutting down a few parts that use too much power and switching over to other parts that use less, all in one big move. It is risky. This is a machine built in the 1970s, with no instruction manual for this exact problem, no backup plan sitting on a shelf, and absolutely no way to send anyone out to fix it if something goes wrong. So the team decided to test this risky plan first on Voyager 1's twin spacecraft, Voyager 2, which has a little more power to spare and sits slightly closer to home. Those tests happened in the middle of 2026. If everything goes well, NASA plans to try that exact same fix on Voyager 1, starting as soon as July of this year. And if it actually works, there is a real chance that the tool they just shut off in April could get switched back on. Nobody at NASA is making any promises. But they have not given up either. And if there's one thing this little spacecraft has taught everyone again and again, it is that betting against it has never once worked out well. And now here comes a moment that has never happened before in the entire history of humanity. On November 18th, 2026, just after 2 in the morning, Voyager 1 will become so far away from Earth that it will officially sit a full light day away from us. That means if you sent it a message at that exact moment, moving at the speed of light itself, the fastest possible speed in the entire universe, it would still take a full 24 hours just to arrive. If the spacecraft sent something back to us right away, it would take another full day for that message to make it home. No human-made object has ever been that far away before. Not once, not ever, in the entire history of every single space mission we have ever launched. And this old, tired, slowly fading machine is about to become the very first. Even after that day passes, Voyager 1 keeps going. It will not stop, ever. There is nothing out in that empty space to slow it down. No air, no friction, nothing strong enough to pull it off course. It will just keep flying, quietly, forever, at about 38,000 miles every single hour, farther and farther into the dark. And bolted right onto its side is something that will outlast every single one of us. A golden record protected in a gold covering, carrying greetings recorded in 55 different human languages. The sound of rain falling, the sound of ocean waves, the sound of people laughing. 90 minutes of music chosen from cultures all across our entire planet. And a simple map showing whoever might one day find it exactly where our tiny planet sits inside this massive universe. A famous scientist who helped put that record together once described it as a message in a bottle tossed out into a giant cosmic ocean. And that is exactly what it is. Nobody knows if it will ever be found. Nobody knows if anything out there is even capable of finding it. But it is out there now, drifting along, carrying proof that a small blue planet once existed, full of people who were curious enough to build a machine and send it out past everything they had ever known, just to see what was out there. That record will still be traveling long after every city on Earth is gone. Long after every book, every photo, and every memory we have ever written down has crumbled away into dust. It might be the most lasting thing our entire species has ever made, and right now it is riding on a machine that runs on less power than a couple of light bulbs in your own house. Sometime in the early 2030s, Voyager 1 will finally run completely out of power. The last signal will leave the spacecraft, travel across billions of miles of empty space, and arrive here on Earth. And after that, there will be silence. No more strange hums to study, no more updates on the wall of fire, no more messages from the edge of everything we know. But even in silence, it keeps moving. There is nobody left to hear the engine, because there is no engine at all, only momentum that started with a rocket launch back in 1977 and has never once slowed down since. It will keep flying through the dark, carrying the sound of human laughter with it, long after every single one of us is gone. Long after the sun itself has changed, drifting through a universe that will very likely never send anything back. And somehow, this whole incredible story started with one small team of engineers who just wanted their little spacecraft to survive 5 years before you go. This little machine was only ever supposed to work for 5 years. It has been working for almost 50, and it just keeps finding things nobody expected. If this story blew your mind even a little bit, hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you do not miss it when NASA shares what actually happens with that Big Bang fix, or when Voyager 1 crosses that massive light day milestone in November. Here's a question for you. If you could put 5 sounds from Earth onto a golden record for someone else to find someday, what would you choose? Drop your answer in the comments. I really want to know. And if this kind of story is your thing, check out some of the other space mysteries on this channel, because this is far from the strangest thing floating out there in the dark.